Welcome to My Creative Corner 3, a podcast about quilting, crafting, creativity, with a dash of garden, chatting about current interests and life in my northern town. You can find show notes at mycreativecorner3.com. You can also find all of my social media, how to purchase a virtual cup of coffee, and all events on the website. Please feel free to stop by and leave a comment. I really appreciate everyone who listens. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the podcast. Hello, everyone. It's July 7th. I hope your weekend was as good as mine. Here in the U.S., it was the 4th of July, which is a time of fireworks and lots of fireworks in my neighborhood. A lot of people do barbecues and they go out camping and boating and get sunburned, go to concerts. No, I didn't do any of those things. So I am probably not your typical American. 4th of July is one of those things where when the kids were little, we would go out and watch fireworks shows because it wasn't legal to shoot them off in neighborhoods. Well, over the last few years, my neighbors have gone all out. I think on the 3rd of July, on good weather, they must have shot off about 100. I'm not lying, 100 fireworks. So I just looked out the window. It was great. I got ice cream because that is the 4th of July to me. And we went to Culver's, got a concrete mixer, and just had a nice quiet day at home because it was hot, very hot. And then Saturday, it was 95. So we didn't go to the car races and watch fireworks because it was going to be 95 and the sun sets and beams right on the bleachers. Our son had something to do anyway, so we changed plans and I went and visited my parents, and it was still hot. It was 95 to 100 where they were. And we went for a little ride. My husband flew the drone. We visited, and it was a nice day out for the weekend. And then Sunday, it started to rain. And it rained a lot all day. And I just wanted to say we didn't get the rain and the flooding, but Texas did. And my heart goes out to the people who perished in the flash floods. And I know what it's like to have to rebuild a community after a devastating act. We've had our fair share of devastation up here. Flooding wasn't one of them, but we've had our own problems. And I know I lived in the Southwest for a while, and I know flash floods are devastating. They're horrible. My heart goes out to them. And if you have any way to donate to the cause, there are lots of great, great nonprofits, including Ryan Hall, y'all, who's taking a squad down to the Kerrville area, and they're going and helping people right there on the street. So I would feel comfortable donating to him or any of the other nonprofits in that area. So I just want to say there's been a whole lot of changes going on. In fact, let's start from the very beginning, as was said in a movie, Julie Andrews, and I believe it was The Sound of Music. Let's start at the very beginning. And the first thing is my back has been bothering me for several years now. Since I've had COVID and long COVID, joint pain has been a problem. And, I just thought, do more, do more, do more, exercise more, trying to follow the doctor's orders, doing all of the things, and it just kept getting worse. So I thought, we got to stop doing whatever I'm doing because it's not helping. And in fact, maybe it's making it worse. So I cut back on the walking I cut back on pushing myself really hard. I stopped going to the chiropractor, and I even stopped doing the Qigong for a while and just started doing more movement. One moment, please. I'm not going to edit out all the pauses because I'm pretty tight in the chest. I have a jug of water next to me. Sorry if it interrupts, but this is part of my life. It's very damp and humid today, and in allergy season. But anyway, I stopped doing all of that, and now I'm slowly reintroducing things. I'm taking a little class about pain management and memory management. And the first part of exercise for pain management in the little class I was taking, I'm following it to the T. And it's do about half of what you think you can do, and then take it back a little bit more. And then do that for a week and slowly build upon that. And I started doing very simple senior citizen recommended exercises. Very simple ones like arms over the head, push your leg out to the side, lift your leg up to the front, half squats. Very simple things. In fact, I believe it's called Go for Life is the senior exercise program. I got a pamphlet in the mail. So I've been doing that, and yes, it did cause pain. So I ratcheted back for a couple of weeks, and now I've added short Qigong exercises. I've added an 8-minute routine. We'll see how my back feels. I've also got off all the Tylenol I was taking, which I knew was a problem. I started really watching what I eat, and I've gained a pound. Isn't that how it goes? But I'm just really focusing more on movement, 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 gardening, walking around the yard, meditatively walking, trying to really have mindful living versus making everything a 15 to 30 minute to an hour chore. Trying to have a gentle flow mindfully to every day. And I think it's working. So that's the first change. Second change is I can't sit in my sewing chair, and I'm on the hunt for a good sewing chair. I also sit at my dining room table. Those chairs hurt my back, and I'm not doing a podcast from the sewing chair or the dining room chair, which is where I typically podcast, mostly from the sewing chair. But I had to be in my living room today in my comfy pink chair, which is breaking down. And so that's a change. I just have to do what I can. And that means maybe I have to take a few weeks off from the podcast. Maybe I'll be prolific. But if I can be comfortable, I will be able to do the things I want to do and not just keep forcing myself to do things the way I think they should. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So being comfortable is very important to helping my body heal. And then the next change is a very, I don't know, I never thought I would do it. I changed from, this is my last month, can you hear me? On Silk and Sonder. It's $75 a quarter if you go by the quarter subscription. I love the journal. I love the Sonder Socials where you can take classes. Most of them are free. I love the daily rituals, especially Jennifer O's. But I just, number one, it's very expensive to get a journal sent to you every month with a theme, and a lot of it is thought out for you. And I thought, $25 a month isn't horrible, but what got me to where I'm not comfortable with the product anymore is 2025 has been a big, big, big push for life coaching, which is very expensive However, it's not a real person doing life coaching, it's AI. And I don't know how I feel about AI. I use AI. I like using Gemini on my phone. I like using the AI searches on Google when I want to research a topic. It kind of gets me going. But using AI to to replace a life coach human being, or using AI every day, all the time for chatting, using AI to be your mental health professional. That's a big push. I keep seeing more and more. And my whole goal is to get off the screens, and I just didn't see this as something I can support. So what I did is I already bought and looked at a new journal that's half the price. So this is 90 days for about $28, and I did buy it on Amazon. However, it's Prime, Amazon Prime. What's the word I'm looking for? It is shipped through Amazon Prime. There you go. So overall, it's called Clever Fox. That's the name of the company. And if you're not using Amazon, it looks like you can order straight from the company, which is great. So Clever Fox has many different journals that you could buy. It has a 60-day money back guarantee, no questions asked. If there's any issue with your order or you're not happy with your results in 60 days of purchase, let us know, and they'll give you your money back, which I thought was great. I opened it up, and many things are standard journaling things. Many things are familiar, like Silk and Sonder had. It's not dated, so like if you miss the day, you can just pick it right back up. So I chose the self-care journal. There are several journals to pick from, and most of them are about 90 days. There's a wellness journal. There's all types of journals, but then they have other books like your password book, your hour by hour, many topics. I'm thinking I could really get into this company. I've watched their YouTube channels, and you can look up Clever Fox by the company itself, and they show you exactly what you're getting and how to use it. So let me tell you, at the beginning, there's several pages of self-care ideas. This is a journal with nice paper, and it's not a soft cover, but it's not a hardbound. I'd say it's one of those you can tap, but it has some flexibility. It's the paper is probably a standard A4 size paper that's folded in half. That's the journal size. What I like is there at the beginning of this, it talks about what's your vision for the life you want. What is your purpose and mission? What prevents me from living my life to the fullest? How can I resolve it? Gives you a couple pages of contemplation. What fills me with joy and what drains me? I could see filling those out over the course of the 90 days. Life balance, or all kinds of vision boards, monthly review, and then you jump into the daily. And the daily is great because it has journal questions, but they change. Like what this day it says, do I feel like I have enough energy recently? For me, that sometimes is no. What's my biggest worry and how am I dealing with it? What am I looking forward to? Then on that daily page, it gives you tracker on there. Screen time, vitamins, sleep hours, water, caffeine and caffeinated drinks. If you're like me, you want to keep track of that. It's easy to go overboard. Fruits and veggies, monitor your mood, energy, and activity. Has a gratefulness every day, an affirmation spot, your self-care act for the day, your main goal, and then it has a to-do list and your schedule. I like that because you could put this in your purse and take it with you. And I have an electronic schedule on my phone, but it's nice to have pen to paper. I love pen to paper. And there are some places to do some journaling. Oh, here's a good one. Do I feel energized after spending time with my friends? What am I looking forward to? So I like it. I like it a lot. It comes with stickers. It comes with all kinds of wellness focused questions. And there's pages for reflection and self-intent setting intentions, which I like. And there are bullet journal pages that are like dots. So what I am looking forward to this because it's got so much and it's less expensive and I won't feel guilty because when I'm done with these journals, I generally throw them away because they're just to help me stay on point throughout my day, help me collect my thoughts, help me to stay focused. The other thing I've been doing, I thought I'd try a digital one. A digital app that's free. Of course, you can upgrade to paid. And so far, after using it for a week or so, the free one doesn't seem to have any limitations. It's called Clearful. It's a journaling app, and when you open it up, it's really nice because it's on your phone. It's portable. If you sync your phone to any device, then you could type or do whatever you usually do. There's insights into how many entries you've done, your daily streaks, your week streaks, how many words you're typing. So if you're like me, I want to write more. But it has a weekly review, is today because I've been doing it for a week. Discover daily, and then it gives you a journaling prompt. When did I feel proud of myself for stepping out of my comfort zone? And you can type all of that in this journal. And what's super fun is there's a library that you can do capture summer's calm and joyful moments. And it gives you several things that you can do for on the free app, not paid. And then there's morning pages. You could follow evening pages. There's settings. It can send you messages. And without having any prompting, you can just click new and write what you're thinking. And I think this is a nice thing to do for like Wonder Habit and those magical Zen moments. Now, if you want to add pictures and all of that, you need to upgrade. But for me, this is a fun companion because I like the pen to paper, but I like having the ability to jot something down real quick. So those are two journaling things that I'm doing that is a change. I'm not changing my job. I'm not changing doctors. I'm not changing where I live. I'm doing subtle changes to help me capture the essence of summer and to live a happy, pain-free life. The other thing that I am changing is going from productivity to having quality time, quality projects. Like I said, mindful projects. So, what have I been doing mindfully over the last few weeks is gardening. We got our storage unit emptied, and in the storage unit were some beautiful metal lawn chairs that we inherited from my husband's grandparents, and we put them on the patio. Oh, it's been great. I missed those chairs. And the storage unit is closed down, and we got rid of the things we didn't need. And now we have room in the basement and garage for all the things that were in storage. It was great. Now, they had to call us and say, your unit is sinking and falling down the hill, which I noticed it is, and they need to redo all of those units. So it was great in the fact that it put a timetable on us. We wanted to have it empty by the end of May, if you remember, but life happened. And the pressure was good. It got us motivated and we got it done. And it really didn't take as long as my brain thought it would take because the two of us were able to load everything up in 2 trips and got the place clean. And now this weekend we puttered around in the basement and set up the storage rack that was in the unit. It's now in the basement. And the basement looks wonderful still. It's not chock full of junk. Because remember, in the spring, we emptied all the junk that we didn't want. and we're still puttering through what's left and downsizing on all of that business. Because who knows? One day I may want to move from here into a retirement home. I'm starting Swedish death cleaning early. The other change that we did was with the gardening part, it's just mindful 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at a time. If I only can do a few weeds and trim things down and prune them, that's all I can do. I'm going to need some help when the blooms start, I think, to lift some of the overgrown plants. And that's the other thing. I'm just having to get a little bit more help on things that I have not been able to do myself. And you know what? The garden is gorgeous. Yeah, there's a few weeds in it. It's mostly grass, but it is okay. So I think that is all of the big changes. So let's talk about, well, little adventures. So let's segue into the garden adventure. So the yard part of the garden was getting overgrown, and the tractor tire in May, the valve stem rusted through on the one back tire, and all of this ballast we didn't know it was in the tire because we bought this tractor used. It was calcium chloride. They use it for ballast and to help the tires to keep from freezing, weight, and so you can have to put less air in it, is my understanding. All that leaked all over the driveway. Couldn't find anyone in town, so we had to drive. My husband did it. He drove like 45 minutes to the dealership where we bought the tractor. Took 2 weeks to get between them getting it fixed and us being able to go back up there and pick it up when they're open and drive back. He put it on, went to do the other tire to get the yard going and the mowed, and now we're talking the grass is really tall. And I've been picking up sticks as I could. My husband's been picking up what's left from the ice storm, tiny sticks and branches, and pruning and stuff. The other tire blew. Oh my, oh my. So now we're mid-June, okay? We're mid-June. The other tire blew, and we got a letter in the mail from the city. And there's us and several people on the block who are having trouble, right? Post ice storm, trying to get things picked up, trying to get things done so you can mow the yard. And the city gave us notice. We're only required to mow 3 times a summer in the city where I live, which is really not hard to do unless you don't have a lawnmower. And we didn't. Our lawnmower was that darn tractor. And we called around to everybody we knew who did tires locally, and there was someone who did the second tire locally for half the price. We got it done, and then this last weekend, 4th of July, we got the tractor, both tires on, lawnmower on, and the rake. So what happened with the lawn? Well, one of my dear friends let me borrow her lawnmower, and my husband mowed the lawn. And unfortunately, it took us, with the holiday in there, Juneteenth, it took us a little time to get the lawnmower back to her, but they have their lawnmower back. Our yard needs to probably be mowed again before we leave town tomorrow for our vacation, but what a saga. And by the end, my husband is just like, I hate this tractor. So, he was so frustrated. It runs like a dream. It's just the saga of maintenance, just like cars. And they're frustrating. And it's not easy to put the lawnmower on. And every year older you get, it's not easy to roll around on the ground, putting on the lawnmower, putting on the snow blower. So anyway, it's done. The yard looked great. It needs to be mowed again today if it stops raining. And if it doesn't stop raining, I think my husband's going to mow it in the rain because we want it to look good for the festival. Because guess what? They do the detour right by our house. Yes, Festival. That's why we chose this week for our little Michigan vacation. Oh my goodness. 80,000 people were in town last year. This year it's the 60th anniversary. They shut down Main Street, put up a carnival. They have free concerts, food, games, and a few crappy tents where people sell things. I'm not going to call them crafts because not everyone has crafts, and some of it's like MLM stuff. Some of them are like last year or the year before, I bought a emotional support chicken that someone hand crocheted, and I saw her crocheting. One I bought last year also a tumbled rock from a local rock person who sells, I didn't know, at the farmer's market. Little pricey, and when I got home, I found that the stone was broken. But whatever, I got those are a couple things I'd like. But a lot of things are like food items or spices or there are some things like there was someone who did some quilts. They're very simple ones, and someone who did other like metal art and lawn sculptures and things out of license plates. Some of those are cool, but they're like 5 booths of the rest of it not being very interesting. So we don't usually go and spend a lot of time. Years past, I'd go every day because they had a great concert every day in a space where you could hear the music very nicely. Now they put it underneath the pavilion, which has no terrible acoustics and echoes terribly. You have to pay to get into the concert with a pin, an Alpenfest pin. And with the traffic being so horrible, I mean, people won't even let us in and out of our driveway because it's a main Michigan highway that goes right through our downtown that winds up going by my house, which is people revving their cars and Jake brakes blowing. And my husband drives a semi for a living, and it's just a nightmare. So we are not going to be here, and I'm not going to miss it. I've been to probably at least 40 of the 60 Alpenfests. So it's okay. I've been a supporter. If you like going to festivals, it's a cute little festival. You just know that the traffic will be kind of weird in, parking. There's free parking around town for you to get there. That's also not a problem. But for me, it's just inconvenient. So rather than, you have to either get out of town or you have to be part of Alpenfest and really enjoy it. So we chose this year to get out of town. So I guess that is another July change. So what are we doing? Our Paradise to Hell tour. We're going to go to the UP, start in actually Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, do the Soo Locks boat tours if the weather is good and we can get tickets. I think we can. My husband's never done it. It's so cool. You go through the locks. It's a couple of hours. Kids may not like it. They might get bored because it takes time, but it's fun. I thought it was fun. Then we're going to drive up the lake shore to Paradise, Michigan, and probably Whitefish Point. I would like to look for some beautiful Lake Superior stones, agates maybe, and if I can find a Ypperlite at a local rock shop up there, it will be great. Ypperlites glow under black light, and I have a few stones that do that, and I would love to have a Michigan stone that glows in the dark. You get UP has agates and some really pretty chert and jasper and all kinds of things. The fossils are more on Lake Michigan, Petoskey, and Charlevoix stones, and a lot of fossils over in Lake Huron. So I just want to pick up a few stones and get some really pretty pictures. The weather looks good. There's a couple of small hikes, like tiny walks for most people, at scenic lookouts and get some beautiful pictures. Then we're going to meander our way down to Hell, Michigan, which is south of Lansing, north of Ann Arbor. And Saturday, we have to go to a Highland game in Ann Arbor. So I think we've got many choices. There's a Lavender Festival that's on Friday. There's Hocking Hills in northern Ohio. There are a couple of shops we want to go to in the Detroit area in suburbia. You know, I'd like to go to an antique store, and we're just going to see what the weather's like, what our energy level is like, and where the roads take us. I like these kind of trips. They're semi-planned, but not everything is planned, and there's something to choose in the region and a couple of things. Like we could go to Dow Gardens in Midland on the way down. We've been there before, but it's been a couple years. There's just lots of things. We're going to go right along I-75 down to, I think it's 23 along that zone. So I'll probably post a few pictures on my Facebook page and Instagram if you're interested in my boring vacation pictures. So let me tell you about the things I have done over the last little bit. I finished my cross stitch. It's called Stardust. It is a stitch along that Fat Quarter Shop has sponsored. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is the fundraising um, for the purchase. You don't have to really purchase this. You make a donation. The pattern I think is free, but you make a donation to Texas Make-A-Wish, and I did get the entire kit. That Fat Quarter sponsored me for this, and I had a great time stitching it. It came with a stitch pack, and I bought the frame that went with the entire kit, and that finished it off just perfectly. And it was great for July. I started it in May, and then I ended it in July. And I'll tell you what, it kind of looks like an exploding firework with all the stars. Love it. There's a quilt pattern that goes along, but I like the cross stitch better. So I finished that up. I finished up all of my customer quilts and friends quilts, and my long arm is empty. And I just got my order from the Fat Quarter Shop because nobody has batting up here that the local quilt shop is sold out. She said batting is on back order. She's waiting. I didn't see any that I really liked at Hobby Lobby, so I thought, okay, Fat Quarter Shop has some great batting, so I bought their 80/20, and I'm going to load a quilt on, I think, today. I've got probably a half a dozen quilts that I made over the last year that I haven't quilted. And then that will be probably about a dozen quilts that I need to bind. So that's my goal for the second half of the year because you know July is halfway through the year. And my crafting goals are to get those quilts quilted and bound. And I have a couple of quilts that I'm puttering on. The Lori Holt quilt, I made another block or two. And sadly, the quilt shop is going to have one more Lori Holt Club in July, and I am the only one coming, and so it will end. But it was great learning experience and great to have help from my local quilt shop, Compass Star. It's a beautiful quilt shop. They are on the Michigan Shop Hop Tour, and everyone has said wonderful things about it. I'm spoiled. It is a beautiful shop within walking distance of my house. I probably am actually 4 houses away from it. So support Compass Star. They are not highly supported by people taking classes and joining different clubs. I know the Open Sew Club is on Mondays and it's pretty well attended. But I think classes and local sales are not as great as the tourism. It's it is billed as the destination quilt shop. So check it out. If you're ordering, I mean, Fat Quarter Shop has everything. I know that. And it's hard to beat. I love Fat Quarter Shop and I buy a lot there myself. But check out Compass Star. The other thing we're going to do next month at the Lori Holt Club is we're going to play around with a new cutting system that is backlit. It's incredible incredibly expensive, and it's called Caterpillar, and I know Fat Quarter Shop sells them, and she had them for a long time before she started using them. And what I'm finding is at age, I'm having difficulty reading the rulers. I'm having difficulty seeing cross stitch. I'm having difficulty in low light. My house is kind of dark, and Michigan is not known for having a lot of light. I do have task lighting and a hot overhead light for sewing and cross stitch, and I have a light at my cutting and sewing station, but I want to play around with this because what I got paid for on the last several quilts is I've saved that money, and I'm pondering the thought of buying one of those. So I want to see if I like it. So we're going to play with that too. And then I am down to the last two family favorite quilt blocks. I'm sewing those, and they are the mosaic blocks, and I'm going to start assembling. That is a Sherry and Chelsea pattern from the book Family Favorites, and it is the Brightly Sampler. It is a quilt along that has been hosted by Fat Quarter Shop, and they did sponsor me for this quilt along. So it's absolutely gorgeous. Highly recommend the book. Highly recommend. The fabric I bought is by Sandy Gervais. I love this. It's called Feed My Soul, which has been my absolute mantra for 2025. I'm feeding my soul. And the fabric that Sherry and Chelsea have designed for Laguna Sunrise, and then the Strawberry Lemonade, it was so popular. Moda did a second printing of it, which is unheard of. Love their fabrics. They're just so good. Of course, you know I love Lori Holt, but I am a huge fan of Sherry and Chelsea. They both have YouTubes and blogs too. So super, super fun. So what are some other things I've been doing? Well, I started knitting my color work blanket, and it's tiny squares. It's called Piece by Piece, and I can't remember the lady's name, and she just rebranded her name. So anyway, I'll get that in the show notes. It's really fun. I think I've got the hang of it. The first block was horrible and is going to go in the trash, but I've got 3 or 4 more in different colorways, and I'm not going to do it as big as hers, but I think I'm going to try to do about three colorways per block pattern. She has so many in the book, in the pattern that you print, and I think she might be publishing it too one day. But anyway, the bottom line is there are many, and I will do as many as I can. And I did not go with the wool because it's making me itch, and it's so hot, and I'm getting kind of tight in the chest when I use something that's 100% wool. But I went with the Cotton Blend yarn by Lion that is much less expensive in vivid, beautiful colors. It says it's worsted weight, which it is, and it's not as thin as the chunky thread that Lori Holt makes, which I love too. This is great, but I think this would be a fabulous colors and way more yarn for the price than chunky thread, and you could do granny squares and all kinds of things with it. I love cotton and cotton blend, and I love it's kind of like a t-shirt yarn that you can buy at the store, but that's super big and chunky. This is, like I said, worsted weight, and it's a cotton blend. Love it. It's not like Peaches and Cream or any of those at all. This is a really superior yarn. And I bought mine at Michael's because I don't have anything in town that I have no yarn shop, and I didn't have any place near me that carried this yarn. So I just bought it online at Michael's, and I just picked random colors. I'm going to go back and pick more when I'm running low, and it's really been fun. I like making block-based projects because they're easy pick up and put down, or portable projects. Like I could work on this for a while and put it down. I still have a Lori Holt chunky thread granny square table runner that I'm working on, and I've put it down for a while. That's crocheted, and yet I can pick it up and it will be no problem because I know exactly where I left off and what I want to do. Block by block is so much fun. And in that order, with the batting that I got from Fat Quarter Shop, I bought Minky Kim has charms, little zipper pull charms, like Lori Holt and everybody else in the world does now. Oh my gosh, it's like a vintage sewing machine. I bought mine in a green colorway and put that on my knitting bag. So it's adorable. So I thought a couple of things I wanted to share were some things that I love. So I enjoyed the Sandman series on Netflix, and the second and final season has started, and I've watched 2 episodes. It's a superhero story and it's a little weird, but I like it. I do like it. The other thing that we're watching that I think is okay is Andor. I wouldn't say it's great cinema, but it's a nice, fun summer watch. I'm doing a lot of watching farm shows in the summer, and my favorite one is Tom Pemberton. He's really hard to understand with his northern English accent, and he talks fast, but it's super fun. And I also have been reading a couple of folks on Substack who I really love, and D. Michelle Perry, who I've talked about the Wonder Habit, talked about her, and she's on Substack. And if you sign up on Substack, every time people post, you get it in your email so you can read it at your leisure. The other person I have been reading for a long time, and I realized she's on Substack, and is called Julie Tallard Johnson. She has changed her name to a dangerous old woman. I just love it. Absolutely love it. And she does journal prompts. She does on every Friday. She ends her her writing, which is beautifully done, with journal prompts and thought experiment types of things. But what I really like about her is that she's kind of got some new age thinking, but she's also a therapist in her working life, and so she's just very conscious about mental health. And right now she's been doing a series on grief, all kinds of grief, and I think it's very thought provoking. So I've really enjoyed reading her as well. And I'm doing my Qigong exercises again because my back doesn't hurt all the time. And I'm enjoying the videos from White Tiger. You can see the try-its on YouTube. I did buy a series, and I'm enjoying doing the exercises on there. So I thought I would end with something to think about. And it goes along the series that I have done for the last several podcasts about Swedish death cleaning. But it's also, brings up this thought about who wants our stuff, right? That's why I started cleaning. And and I really didn't want to leave this mess for other people to clean up after me. That's the whole part of Swedish death cleaning. But then when you get to the deepest part of it, it's really about living, right? It's about living in your house in its best state with the things you love and need, and things that you want to keep that make you incredibly happy, and not with things that you have felt obligated to have or keep and all of that kind of stuff. So I ran into an article that an acquaintance of mine um, posted, and I wanted to read it to you. It's a Facebook post. I don't even know if it's who wrote it. I don't know where it came from. Oh dear, I thought I had it right here. I need to find it so I can read it to you. So, like I said, it's one of those things going around as a repost on Facebook. I don't even know who wrote it, where it started, where it came from, or anything like that. But I thought it really kind of struck me with this whole theme of what I've been thinking about. It says, my daughter called me last week and said she doesn't want any of my quilts when I'm gone. Just like that, over the phone, while I was folding another one that I had spent months piecing together by hand. Mom, I just don't have room for all of that stuff. Maybe you should donate them or something. 43 years of quilting. 43 years of staying up late after everyone went to bed, stitching love into every square, every seam. Baby quilts for grandchildren who lived too far away to visit. Wedding quilts for nieces who never sent thank you cards. Comfort quilts made during every family crisis, every loss, every celebration. All of them hanging on this old baby quilt I turned into a quilt rack. My husband found the headboard and footboard at an estate sale 15 years ago, back when he still noticed the things that made me happy. Before retirement made him a stranger who just sits and watches TV all day and barely looks up when I walk through the room. I stood in the basement yesterday looking at that after quilt after quilt draped over the rails. Patterns I learned from my grandmother, colors I chose to match rooms that have been since repainted, stories sewn into fabric that no one will ever know or care about. I kept making them anyway, even after my arthritis got so bad I could barely hold the needle. Even after my eyes started failing, I had to squint under the brightest lamp, because what else was I supposed to do with all this love I still had left to give? Okay, this is making me sick to my stomach. There's still more. Last month, I finally joined an app. I'm not going to say the name. After seeing it mentioned in a quilting group, I was nervous about sharing my work, afraid people would think it was old fashioned or not good enough. But then something incredible happened. Other quilters started commenting, sharing their own stories, ordering custom pieces from my little shop. Women who understood every stitch carries a piece of your heart. Yesterday, a young mother messaged me through the app wondering if I could make a memory quilt from her late father's shirts. She said she'd been searching everywhere to find someone who was worthy of making a quilt from the clothes. So the final upshot. So now I'm making a quilt for someone who will treasure it, someone who will wrap themselves in it and remember. Someone who gets that a quilt isn't just fabric and thread. Maybe my daughter will never want what I've made, but somewhere out there other daughters do, and that's enough to keep my hands busy and my heart full. I want to be sick. I'm sure this was probably written by AI or something, but the bottom line is this. Really? Why do we make quilts? Well, there is a lot of people who make quilts out of love, and they give them to people that they love. But let me tell you something. My kids don't want all of my quilting stuff. And I don't want you to think that my craft room and my house looks like hoarders, because it doesn't. But I stopped counting at 100 quilts in one of my second rooms that I've been, it's a guest room now. And I do have fabric in a couple of Calyx IKEA storage systems that I'm whittling down to one storage system. You know, quilts take up a lot of space, and the guilt about the amount of money I have spent and time I have spent making them, because why? I love making quilts. I made those quilts for me, and I have found homes for many of them. My daughter has plenty of quilts from me, and my mother. She has lots of Afghans that I've crocheted and that her mother-in-law has made. So this is what I'm trying to get across. Nobody wants our crap. And our quilts are treasures to us, and they might be to other people, but that doesn't mean that we're entitled to say that it has to be our children, grandchildren, nieces, and everybody who has to take this and treasure every stitch we've ever made. I quilt because it helped me make sense out of a very difficult job and strange times that I've lived through having illnesses and healing. Quilting has been healing for me. Quilting is that for many people, but nobody has to take my stuff. And I have given several quilts away to donate. I get asked all the time, do I have quilts that I'd be willing to donate? Yes, I do. Many of my quilts are used. I've made them to be used. So those I would never donate. But there's a time where I do have more than I have plenty. Quilts have been made out of plenty when I had money. And that's kind of really how quilting has always been made. Not always from, flour sacks and old clothes cut up and upcycled, which there are people who do that. But many people, even in the dawn of quilting in this country, is made out of fabric that came from excess income when we had money. And that's when I had a little money, rather than paying for a therapist, I did crafts, and quilting happened to be my favorite one. In fact, I think I come from a long line of people who make things for lots of reasons, most of it for the joy of making it, for they enjoyed it and they enjoyed giving of themselves to that. I have at least a half a dozen crocheted blankets, or they were called Afghans back in the day, which um, we don't say that anymore. We say blankets. And you know what? I'm thinking of parting with some of them. They take up an incredible amount of space in my house, and they're in closets, and I don't enjoy them. Someone else may enjoy them, and someone else may cut them up and make clothing out of them. They're in really good shape, but I'll keep the ones that I love. And some of the ones I've made will probably go also. I've had them for years. So you got to think, some of these quilts and some of these blankets are 25 to 30 to 40 to 50 years old. That's really old. And it's not a treasure that people have to have. I mean, it's a 50-year-old piece of cotton for quilts, and these are acrylic made yarn blankets. And same with all the dishes I have. I collected them because I love them. No one else is going to love them, and no one else needs them. In fact, I'm getting black light to redo the china cabinet with all of my uranium ware and maybe put a few rocks in there and have them glow all the fall, October, maybe even all winter. Wouldn't that be fun? But why? So we make things and collect things because we love them. And those collections, those things that we've made, I don't want a guilt trip. And that's what that whole repeat writing piece was, a guilt trip about, you have to take my stuff, or now you've devastated me because you're belittling something that meant so much to me. That's not it at all. When I started out with my life, in my adult life, I wanted to put my own brand on things. In fact, I bought a house that my parents lived in for like 15 years. What's the first thing I did to this house? Is I made it my own, repainted the walls, and I remodeled the kitchen and bathroom to make it more functional for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make your own things. Maybe have one or two items that mean something to you. So anyway, I just thought that would be something as a food for thought about our projects, our quilts, our art, our creativity, is that, yeah, there'll be people who would really love to have it. And yeah, there are people who are quilt worthy in giving them gifts. And sometimes you give a gift, and if it ends up outside as a picnic blanket or used as a tablecloth, or the dog has puppies on it, which is the classic story, right? It's okay. You gave that away. Yes, you made it with love, but not everything has to become a shrine, right? Not everything has to be a shrine. So love what you make and keep making them because you love to do it. And because making, whether it's quilts, fine art, it really helps us process our day. It helps us stay focused. It helps us live that meditative, Zen, happy life. We see the wonder and beauty. It helps us rewire our brain to seeing all the joy and the beauty in positive things. When we make quilts for people who are mourning and sad, it helps us to see the goodness and remember them. When we make a quilt for new babies and graduates and wedding gifts, it does celebrate the joy and the happiness. But whatever happens to those things after we give that away is whatever the destiny is for that piece of cloth that has been quilted with love, yes, but everything has a beginning, a middle, its life, its story, if you want to call it that, and an end. Nothing, nothing lasts forever. Not my antique dishes, not the rock collections that I have will probably wind up in the dumpster one day or in the garden or whatever. Why do I pick these rocks up? Because I love to do it. Yeah, it's weird, but I'm weird. Be weird and do the things that you love. Be creative and let it help you find the focus in your day. Make sense of the craziness that this life and this world offers sometimes, but see it as a way to rewire yourself to see the joy and the happiness. And as Michelle Perry says, the wonder of each day. Don't guilt trip anybody about your stuff, because honestly, I'm thinking there aren't a lot of people who want a lot of stuff. Anyway, you think about those, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Comment are always welcome on the show notes, which you can find at mycreativecorner3.com. But the other thing you could do is always email me. And my email is vholloway12345@gmail.com. Or you can make a comment on Substack. This will also be up on YouTube, and you can make comments there. I appreciate, your thoughts, and they don't all have to be positive. If you disagree with me, it's okay. That's what makes this wonderful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Anyway, have a most wonderful week. I'm going to go on vacation and probably take some handwork with me and not touch it once. I'm going to take my journal with me, and I may not even touch it once. But I'm not going to do those things because I feel obligated. I will only do those things if the energy and the spirit moves me to do so. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and be creative.